It's time to put on a cuff. It's time to press a right. It's time to raise the curtain on the office show tonight. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know. It's like a kind of torture to have to watch the show.
Yes, a very warm welcome. It's Andy. It's Freedom Talk Radio online.com and ftjmedia.com as well. We're talking again with Alan Dransfield. Had a great show the other week. The Freedom of Information King from Exeter, Devon, and the lightning strikes. He put in a request for a bridge to have protection, and he's got labelled for the rest of his life for being a vexatious person, putting in unnecessary requests, because apparently it didn't have any relevance to him, the requester. But anyway, we hope to get a special guest on later. All guests are special. And he's probably one of the victims. If he can come in later, that'll be fine. We'll talk to him. If not, anybody's welcome to join the show. We have live calling numbers. I'll just try to get them for you now. I will get them in a second. Alan, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Andy. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And pleased you got back here safe and sound and got your batteries charged in Turkey.
I've got more than my batteries charged.
Good man. Good man. We all need it.
Yeah, I've got them numbers now. If you're calling in the UK, as we are at the moment, you can call the show anytime. Just call in and be patient with us, and then we'll get you on if you want to ask Alan Dransfield any questions. And if you're looking at this at a later time and you want to call into any of the Freedom Talk Radio shows, the number for the UK is 0800, so 0800 640 3111. That's 0800 640 3111. And if you're in the USA, it's 1-888 633 0347. That's 1-888 633 0347. And from any country in the world, if you want a call-in number, just message me, Freedom Talk Radio 2013 at gmail.com. I'm Andy and I'm your host tonight. Over to you, Alan.
Thanks, Andy. I think what we need to do as a country is to really look at the freedom of information situation, and more importantly, the oversight authority for the FOI, which is the Information Commissioner. Because here I sit, Andy introduced me as living down in Devon, and I've moved back up to my original home, which is Boston, Lincolnshire. But I'm carrying on the fight. What I maintain that the freedom of information and the Information Commissioner's office is not fit for purpose, basically because they're not doing what it says on the tin. And we have to go back to the context and history of the FOI, which was born in 2000. It wasn't used until 2005. Why it wasn't used, I don't know, but probably it was because they were panicking. When I say they, it was the Labour Party and Tony Blair that brought this system together. And in general, the idea of the Freedom of Information Act was and is superb. But then they realised that they, being the Labour Party, not the current Labour Party, Tony Blair, and he said in his book in later years that what an nincompoop I was to make this Freedom of Information Act law, because then he realised that people were actually using the freedom of information. And the context of the freedom of information is wonderful, and it would work if it was allowed to work. But the Oversight Authority, the Information Commissioner, and the First Tier Tribunal and the Upper Tribunal and the Court of Appeal, they've really got their heads together basically to stop the freedom of information being used by Joe Bloggs, because that was the purpose of the Freedom of Information Act, to allow Joe Public to be an armchair investigator. Or if they were having problems, Joe Public was having problems, they could write to their local authority, whether it be the tax inspector, the police, hospitals, schools, because the freedom of information covers everything. And there has been thousands of freedom of information requests put in to local authorities, public authorities, and the public authorities have in turn dismissed and refused this information, which flies in the face of the Freedom of Information Act. And what they've used is the Dransfield, that's my name, the Dransfield Vexatious Court President. This came around after, when I was living in Devon in 2007 or 8, I put in a Freedom of Information request for a local rugby pedestrian bridge, which was the Exeter Chiefs. And that bridge was dangerous because it hadn't been provided with the necessary and the legal requirement of lightning protection. Fortunately, nobody's been injured or killed in all those years, but that doesn't mean to say that it won't happen. But at least that gave the Information Commissioner and the Upper Tribunal and various people the opportunity to make once and for all a concrete, vexatious decision that would be used at a later stage on anyone that was seeking information that could be deemed troublesome to the public authority. And basically what I'm saying in layman's language is the Dransfield Vexatious Court Authority was designed by crooks to protect crooks. And I don't mind going on air with Andy Peach's program to name these people. And the Information Commissioner at that time was Christopher Graham. He's done his 7 years and away he's gone with a nice pension. Thank you very much. And the Upper Tribunal judge was a guy called Judge Nicholas Whiteley. He was the instigator of, and it was just bad timing of me going through the courts, but they obviously saw this Dransfield Freedom of Information request as an ideal opportunity to prevent information being used and, more importantly, being published. Now that is not law, and it's not right, and it cannot be right, because the freedom of information, although it was born in 2000, even now, 25 years later, a quarter of a century later, there is no legal definition of vexatious. But still they use it, and I can see Andy's putting up several decision notices as we speak. So basically what I'm saying is the Information Commissioner has conspired, has been complicit with public authorities up and down the country on hundreds, if not thousands, of freedom of information requests to stop information coming out. And I'm just going through I'm not referring to any paperwork. I'm just remembering this stuff, and I'll give you just half a dozen examples. The post office fraud, the Horizon computer fraud, because that's what it is. Incredibly, there were and there are some postmasters and mistresses that use the freedom of information to get information from the public, i.e. the post office. And incredibly, the post office refused to release that information to the postmasters and the postmistresses under the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense, which absolutely beggars belief. And the one that comes to my mind and my memory is a Mr. O'Sullivan. He put in a freedom of information request for some training and some payments for this Horizon, and the post office said, no, you can't have this, in line with the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. So that's one. A second one that comes to mind is the contaminated water. There is not one river or stream or pond or beach in the United Kingdom that meets the health standards, our own health standards, and European standards. And many people have written to the public authorities all up and down the country asking for information. And yes, you've guessed it. No, you can't have this in line with Dransfield. It's vexatious. Ditto for the contaminated blood, which is going back 3 or 4 decades, and where people were getting AIDS, getting ill, getting sick, died from this contaminated blood that was sent over from the States, that was taken from prisoners and taken from some other strange outlets. And again, people in the UK was wanting to know of where this blood, the history of the blood. And again, they were denied under the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. We've got schools, police stations, ambulance stations, bridges, roads, and all sorts of things that are now being classed as unsafe and not fit for purpose because of the rack concrete. Now, I don't want to go into the definition and the history of the rack concrete, but what I will say that this concrete has proven to be unfit for purpose, unsafe, and it's very dangerous. And with the lack of these public services needed now in hospitals, police stations, authorities, blah, 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 again, the information for the RAC, RAAC, was refused under the Dransfield. Another one from the top of my head is Lockerbie. This is up in your neck of the woods, Andy, that we remember, and I don't remember how long it goes back. It's quite a few years, but the disaster and the bombing and the subsequent politics involved, of who was involved and who was the murderers and who were the bombers, etc., etc. The Dransfield Vexatious case was used on that particular case to prevent information coming out. And the last one, it's not quite the half dozen, but one that always springs to mind is the Gurkhas. Excuse me. The Gurkhas' history with the British Defence, Ministry of Defence, goes back many years, and they have a history that is absolutely wonderful. They've saved the bacon of the British soldiers that they've been fighting in the trenches alongside. And I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago, or maybe time goes so quickly, maybe even a decade, that 30 or 40 Gurkha soldiers wanted to go back to their original home to be repatriated, and they were having difficulties getting their pension rights. which the Ministry of Defence refused. So they put a Freedom of Information request in. Do excuse me. I just have to get myself a glass of water. And so their request was refused by the Freedom of Information request. And under the unlawful claim, sorry about that, guys, the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense, and on it goes. I've got a friend up in Stockport, Sheila Oliver, who is a similar situation. She's a Freedom of Information campaigner and a social watchdog, and she's had many requests refused under the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. And obviously the most serious one that Sheila has been involved with, it's a school quite close to her where she lives. I'm not giving that information, obviously. And it's a junior school that's being built for 1,000 pupils, I think it is. It's either 750 or 1,000, but anyway, irrespective, it's a large school, and it's been built on top of a landfill site, which is most improper, it's most unlawful, and it's not right and proper. It cannot be.
That means that school sorry, I'm just picturing a big heavy building on a landfill site. That can't be stable, surely.
Yes, I agree with you, Andy, but it's not the stability. I mean, it is possible, unlawful, to build on a landfill site at a later stage, but usually you find that's done for an industrial estate or something like that. But it is not the structure of the structure that is the problem. It is that the school has been subject to the leaking of methane gas, which takes many years for the rotting vegetation, blah blah blah, and it's coming through the schools. And I really don't know what there has been no safety facilities put in place, and it's still leaking. It is incredible. Wow. But the craziest thing, and again, this is Stockport, there was one particular guy working for Stockport Council, and his name just slips my mind. I'll try and get it for the next show to write it down. He had a double job. Lucky man. He had two jobs. His first job was working as leader of the Stockport Council, whilst he held the position also as a senior official for the Information Commissioner. Now, hang on, wait a minute. That's not just a little tad of conflict of interest, surely. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think we spoke about that one before.
We have, mate.
That's not, no, that wouldn't be him. I can't remember now. I did have a name in my head, but just Googling it doesn't work.
It'll come back to me before the end of this program. But getting back to the school in Stockport, the methane gas is still leaking through, but the Information Commissioners' headquarters, I've never been, and I keep meaning to go up there and do some investigations, but it's a multi-story building, and it is their headquarters, and the whole building is leaking methane gas.
Oh dear.
That's made you cough, hasn't it?
You couldn't make this up, could you?
You couldn't make it up. I mean, I could go on and talk about this and the examples for weeks and months, but nothing seems to get done. So a brilliant tool, as I have to say, the Freedom of Information Act is an absolutely brilliant tool. But the fact that it's been tossed around, moved around, and altered and changed for people's own gain, to save save face and to save the truth coming out. And the Freedom of Information request was just for the opposite. It was to allow the truth to come out. It was to allow the general public to get this information, not to stop them, and certainly not to stop them under this Dransfield Vexatious BS.
It's some famous words that is only a Dransfield word, really. Openness, fairness, transparency, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to have this put on my... Wait a minute. I'm just writing that down.
Your gravestone.
On my gravestone. And then at the bottom of saying, I told you I wasn't vexatious. Yeah, transparency, and thank you for reminding me that, Andrew. Transparency, accountability and security must be seen to be working. It must be seen to be working. And in the event it's not seen to be working, then in all probability, it ain't working. And it ain't working at the Ministry of Defence. It's not working throughout the government ministry offices, and I mean now, of the last 6 months of the Labour Party. It wasn't working before for 12 or 14 years by the Conservatives, and everybody is frightened. Everybody is hiding behind this Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. And we've got 43 police. I'm just writing these down as I go. We've got 43 police authorities in the UK. Each and every one of them has used the Dransfield Vexatious in attempting to hide. The first one that comes to my mind is the South African electrician who was shot on the underground. Charles Menzies. He was shot and killed and murdered by the Metropolitan Police. And then the Metropolitan Police, hid behind the Dransfield Vexatious case. You cannot believe it. And sometimes, I don't know if I sent it to you, Andy, I've been involved just recently with a group that does AI, and they've done this absolutely fantastic report on the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. Did I send it to you?
I don't remember, no, but I was reading something very similar on that earlier.
Yeah, so they put a report together. Obviously, they haven't mentioned some of these names that I'm mentioning. I mean, if I'm wrong, if I am wrong, with the current climate of hate speech and wrongful allegations, you would have thought that I would have been in jail by now. But no, they haven't done that, because the simple reason the Dransfield Vexatious claim that any one of those people want to put me in jail for, it's on their records. The ICO, their records are clear there. The upper trial, the only people that are not tarnished with this vexatious nonsense are the first tier tribunal. Because after the Devon County Council refused my Freedom of Information request as vexatious, I then appealed it to the ICO, and they upheld that decision, saying, yes, it's vexatious. So I then went to the first-tier tribunal. And a lovely Indian lady, she said to the ICO, and I was in attendance, no, ICO, you are wrong. Devon County Council, you are wrong. Mr. Dransfield is right. And you shall give him the information that he's requested within 30 days, 37 days, I think it was. And guess what? Nothing. So then the Information Commissioner, not the Devon County Council, they appealed to the upper tribunal, and then Judge Nicholas Whiteley, that's when he came in, and he was the brainchild with Christopher Graham of getting this Vexatious onto the statutory law books to stop people getting information. That is what it's all about. I mean, you if you were to be inclined to go into the Information Commissioner and see the information request that's been refused on the Dransfield vexation, really and truly, you should be able to go in there and to their records, but you can't, because if you ask for it under a Freedom of Information request, they'll say, no, we haven't got time to do that. You've got to go through. And because all the names are different, you don't know where to look. And there are hundreds, thousands of Dransfield Vexatious decision notices which have been handed out.
So the only way you can get this list then, really, is good old social media and the news people.
Absolutely. And shade them. On the 27th of next month, I've got another upper tribunal hearing, which will be virtual, and anyone out there listening or interested, you can go onto the upper tribunal website on the day, and you'll see it listed, and you can listen in and to watch in, because I'm working closely with a guy called Professor Reuben Kirkland. And he is a Geordie that's been living in Australia for quite some time. And he's asking all the pertinent questions about the Dransfield case, because he supports me to say that this is wrong, you know. And people say to me, Alan, what are you looking for? I'm looking for justice. I'm looking for the return of the Freedom of Information Act. That should be what they need to do is to hold a public inquiry into Section 14.1 Dransfield Vexatious cases. And it's going to take some time. And they will find that they should find that all these vexatious cases are unlawful, they're manufactured, they've been reached in conspiracy, complicit with upper tribunal judges, public authority judges, blah, 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 blah. And they've got to be removed, and then they will have to be recited and revisited. Can you imagine how much money that's going to cost?
Yeah, a lot. Let me just remind people the call-in number if you want to join in the conversation. It's 0800 for the UK, 640 3111. That's 0800 640 3111. It's a free phone number. And the USA, it's toll free 1-88633-0347. And just as a random one, if you're in China, it's +86 400 666 3025.
Thanks for that, Andy. It's reminded me of something. As I said earlier, our Freedom of Information has been on the statutory acts, statutory books, for 20 years. It was first brought in, but not used, in 2000. So it's 25 years. Incredibly, the USA, they brought their Freedom of Information Act, which is far, far superior to ours, in 1966. A wonderful year, because that's the year we won the World Cup. But that's
the year I was born.
There you go. But I digress. And would you believe that the USA Freedom of Information Act does not, I repeat, does not include any vexatious nonsense?
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible, isn't it? Also in the news just recently, will we knock down the Grenfell Tower or will we leave it there as a monument? I'm not particularly bothered about whichever way they go. It's because I do have an opinion, as I do have on most things. And a lot of people are saying we need to keep this in place to remind us, the general public, the world, of this unlawful act, because I believe it was an unlawful act. Yeah. And there are others in government to say that the structure is unsafe. Well, I can tell you that is correct, but it hasn't just become unsafe. It was unsafe before they first started using it and when they designed it. Because, and the reason where I'm going to on this avenue, that people have put freedom of information requests into Kensington and Chelsea Council for information, and guess what? They've been refused because of the Dransfield Vexatious. So Dransfield Vexatious, for want of a better word, at best is bullshit, and at worst it is a tool to pervert the course of justice. And I was watching
some news channel the other day, and it gave all the arguments really. And I think one construction worker, and she was a female, she didn't like government. She was on the side of the people, but she said we shouldn't knock it down totally because of that's what the government wants. But then she said, for it to remain safe, there's only about 10 floors that actually would be safe to live in. Now, she agreed that they all deserve a monument, and her idea, and I think it's swinging the right way, her idea in the end, after a long conversation, knock the whole building down, but rebuild it in full to the highest level it is now, so the whole of London can see it as a memorial, and that'll be the first one in the world. A memorial will be so high, rather than just a simple thing on the floor or a garden. Want a tall tower as a memorial, and I think that's the best. So everyone's happy then. Government is not embarrassed because it's not there. The grieving relatives have got something to mourn, you know. Yeah, I think that's my opinion. Is that
there's nothing wrong with that, Andy, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But getting back to monuments, the 9/11, I've been out there and seen that, and theirs is a hole in the ground, a huge hole in the ground, and it to my mind, as a foreigner visiting there, and I was quite moved by this monument, a hole in the ground. But with the situation here and now, and I really don't want to get into the argument of should they or shouldn't they, but what I will get into the argument is should or shouldn't they have responded in full to the freedom. I don't know how many freedom of information requests have gone in for the Grenfell. I know there's at least 2 or 3, and I know that they've been denied under the Dransfield case. The Dransfield Vexatious case. But having said that, my view would be, similar to yours, Andy, to what I understand is the structure is unsafe. So what shall we do? Shall we leave it for another 20 years and let it be subject to all the storms and the high winds and stuff, and that fall down somewhere and kills another 30 or 40 people? No, it needs taking down properly and scrap metal removed, as they did with the 9/11. But I digress a little on that now. My main feature and my main aim that I'm shooting for, literally, is the Freedom of Information Act, and why is it being so wildly abused? The Cabinet Office. some people, they don't realise that the Cabinet Office, what is the Cabinet Office? Well, my short knowledge of this is the Cabinet Office, there will be a minister for every subject, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Education, blah, 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 and they have ministerial meetings and the Cabinet Office, and the Cabinet Office are prolific users of the Dransfield Vex. What are they so afraid of in the Cabinet Office? Are they worried about the truth coming about Hancock and his dear personal assistant, who he was being very, very nice to behind the door, wasn't he? Without lowering the tone too much.
I'm bringing up the Cabinet Office, but it's an AI overview. It says the Dransfield versus Information Commissioner case was a UK court case that defined Vexatious as the improper, unjustified or inappropriate use of formal procedure. The case involved Dransfield, who made multiple requests to Devon and so on. But it also says somewhere down the bottom that the Cabinet Office uses this more than most.
Yeah, and they do. And that wouldn't be too difficult to find out, would it? Of who used it in the Cabinet Office. The Prime Minister's used it. I'm not so sure about the guy now, but he was in charge of the CPS. The CPS have used it while he was there on the Jimmy Savile case and a few more of the kiddie fiddlers. What I'm doing is I'm screaming and shouting from the rooftops, and what they've done is they've enlightened me and saying that I am similar to Matilda. Now, I'm sure all people of my age will know Matilda. Matilda was the girl who lied. She lied and lied and lied about the fire. But they actually used that in the Court of Appeal. Now, Dransfield is a liar. But where did I lie? And if I lied, why don't they bring it to court and say, this is the reasons, Dransfield, you're a liar. You did this because of what? Why were you lying? And take it from there. Now, what I was talking about earlier is that there is no legal definition of vexatious, but there is a legal definition that was derived by the Court of Appeal on, let me test my memory, on the Court of Appeal, Dransfield versus the ICO, East-West CA, Echo, Walter, East-West CA, Charlie Alpha, 454-2015. And three judges I had there, Judge Arden, Judge Mancur, and Judge Gloucester, three lady judges. And basically what they said in their 40-page decision notice, that although there is no legal definition for vexatious, this was Lady Justice Arden, who was the chair, I will make the definition of vexatious. Basically, judges do not make new laws. Judges apply the law. New law is made by the government and passed by the House of Lords. But that didn't happen. That didn't work, and I don't think she appreciated me telling her. But she said vexatious freedom of information request must start where the request is of no value. And I'm reading this. I'm not reading this. I'm reading it from my mind, from my memory, guys. And for someone of 75, it's not too bad, I don't think. I'm making notes as I go along here, but I'm not reading from notes. She said a freedom of information request becomes vexatious when the request has no value whatsoever to the requester and no value to any member of the public. Now that sentence alone is suffice to get those 3 lady judges locked up, thrown in jail, thrown in the tower, or what have you. Because as I said earlier, a few moments ago, they do not make new law. And they were wrong to say a freedom of information request is of no value. Okay, let's just put that to the test. Let's put it to the test with the post office, the people that's asking there. Let's put it test to the contaminated water, the contaminated blood, the rat concrete. A very good one to really emphasise and drive this situation home. The Lockerbie. There were several people who put freedom of information requests in on Lockerbie, and they were refused under the Dransfield Vexatious bullshit. Excuse my French. But so what they're saying, and they're handing down in law, that the freedom of information request for Lockerbie, whatever it was of no value to Joe Bloggs, who submitted this freedom of information request, which is absolutely incredible. Because imagine there was some Scottish people, not necessarily Scottish, but can you imagine someone that's lost their family, or one person, or 2 or 3 people, and they have had difficulty getting information, and then they thought, oh, I know what we'll do, we'll put that in the freedom of information, that'll soon get it released. And no, it hasn't. So their request to the Lockerbie was vexatious, according to these 3 lady judges. Oh, by the way, Lady Justice Ardin, who was the chair of my court appeal, she was then promoted to the Supreme Court. It beggars belief, Andy. It really does. The truth of all these matters, mate. It's incredible.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of victims out there. I was going to mention somebody that might have joined the show, but that's fine. But there must be many more victims that have a story that, they have got lost in the care system, or they're accused of fraud, or the post office workers. I mean, there's thousands of them. There's got to be this, and it's basically get out of jail free. You said it loads of times, and it is the government's get out of jail card.
Absolutely.
And we need to change that system, because at the moment, Starmer is trying to get rid of all our freedoms by shutting people up from speaking out. So we need a different system. And we've got a good system, but it has never worked.
Yeah. It's never been allowed to work. And it's been manoeuvred by people in power, and not only the people in power for self-gain. I mean, you've just got to look at the COVID nonsense. I mean, Lady Michelle Moan, M-O-A-N. She's a judge, she's a peer, and she stole. I don't pull my punches. She stole £250,000. She didn't go into the tills and take it. The reason that she defrauded the taxpayer of £250,000 via providing PPE, personal protection equipment, for nurses, which was absolutely useless, no good. and so, did she pay this money back? Did she? Hell, she had not returned 1 cent. So where are the police? Where are the authorities? Where are the MPs for that area? It stinks to high heaven, and I'm afraid they will have to shut me off, because I ain't going to shut up until I've got some justice.
Absolutely, and there's no reason, and I don't think for other matters socially that, no one's going to sit down and stop. But we would like some more people to give their views on the show in the next few weeks, won't we? Because
yes. A good friend of mine, and he won't mind me making an introduction for him. I will just call him Shaz for now. We won't call him his family name, but he's lost two of his family, his mother and a brother, through suspicious circumstances, we will say. He will say they were murdered. That's another thing. And I believe him. More recently, when I say more recently, 18 months ago, his other brother, elder brother, was kidnapped by Bradford County Council, the city of culture, no other. The city of culture now abducted his brother and has debarred Shaz from seeing his brother through all, because they're both Muslims, and the Muslim calendar is very important for them to be as a family and together, and he's been denied. He was imprisoned. He was physically imprisoned, I think, for about 6 months for his allegations, and they claim that he was defrauding. He's not been defrauding. He's been cheated, and his brother's been cheated, and we are walking parallel paths together.
Yeah, let's also add that Shaz, he had many properties in the area he lives, and each and every one of them got confiscated because, this was at least 10, 15 years ago. So the problem's been 10 or 15 years plus with his mum, his two brothers, and the only thing the guy has probably done wrong is cared for his family too much. He used to have properties, used to rent them out. He used to care for his mum, his disabled brothers. That's probably the only thing he's done wrong. He's certainly not a criminal, and he's a brother, like all good Muslim brothers. We love him.
Absolutely. I'm just rushing into my other room to get my battery charger out.
It's a battery charger for your phone or for yourself? I always have this old git joke with you, don't I?
Yeah, so it's good to chat, Andy. As you say, we need to get more people involved, and there are people out there that have had difficulties with finding information, and they've applied to their public authority, and the public authority have denied it under Vexatious. And then these poor people, not poor as in poor because of lack of knowledge, they won't have appealed to the Information Commissioner because they don't know how to appeal. They don't know what the procedure is. I consider myself now, okay, you shouldn't blow your own trumpet, but I consider myself quite an authority on, well, in actual fact, I'm on the records and on the statutory acts to say that I am an authority. I'm an authority on the court presidents. Yeah, but so we need some more people to be asking questions. I know there's lots of them out there.
Yeah, even if they email to Freedom Talk Radio 2013 at gmail.com, we can always pass them over to yourself and do a show. Again, there's a UK free phone number. It's 0800 643 111, and that's for any show. But anyway, we've had a good hour, Alan, and hope Shaz does come on another week. The problem with a lot of people, they're scared now, the authorities, big time. But you can always get help anonymously. You don't have to always give your name, and you can get a friend to appear for you or get that information. And if you need any help with appealing, maybe Alan one day will find some time to help you.
Yeah, no problems. I always give that same message out, because it is a very hazardous road to set out on, and you're thinking, well, can I be right? Can I be right? And I answered that question long ago. No, it's not the question that I'm being right. It is an absolute that I'm right and these people are wrong. And why are they doing it? I mean, look at that vile creature, Jimmy Savile. And we have now the Prime Minister that saved his bacon via the Dransfield Vexatious case. And his claim that case, and this was his words exactly, Jimmy Savile's case did not come past my desk while I was the chief executive officer of the CPS. My response to that is bullshit. Why did it need to come across your desk? You are the captain of the ship. You know, or you should know, everything that's going on, from being able to drop the anchor. Have I got the proper navigation system? Is my crew and my team, are they able? Do they have the qualifications? No. He gave such a feeble as he does. It didn't cross my desk.
It probably, thinking about it, never crossed his desk because he'd already got his people to call it vexatious in the first place, maybe. Well,
absolutely. And the Surrey police, it was the Surrey police, somebody put a question, a freedom of information in requested to the Surrey police. This was post my case, which is most important, post my case, which I then was the Dransfield Vexatious court president, the court authority. They asked for a tape of the audio tape, and they didn't say, no, you can't have it. They said, no, you can't have it in line with Dransfield, you're vexatious. Meaning, getting back now to Lady Justice Ardin, what the Surrey police was saying, that the request is of no value to the requester.